everyone! Today I'm going to be doing a video talking about the book fair that I went to a week ago called Word on the Street in Toronto. I met up with Susheela from Super Sushi Pizza as well as Gina from An Awkward Reader, and I actually took the subway for the first time, I believe, by myself. I've been on the subway a lot, but I've always been with someone who actually lives downtown or midtown, or someone who uses the TTC actively and regularly. I typically drive into Toronto and then I just kind of walk everywhere, and that works to an extent. Okay, here's a bit of a story for you. I got to the subway station and it's at the end of the line. It's the beginning of the West Line. And I saw a train there, and then on the other side of the tracks I saw another train that was just coming in, and I was like, which one do I choose? And I saw a guy sitting in the train, and he was in the train, so I'm guessing he missed his stop or something. He was in the train when the train came in and he had no intention of getting off. So I waltzed in and I was like, is this the eastbound train? And he was just sitting there like, yes. And I was like, cool, thanks. It could only be an eastbound train. There is no track left to take you further west, so. So now that I'm an expert on the subway, I am also an expert at book fairs, because that's just what happens when you go to a giant book fair in the middle of Queen's Park. It's just a really beautiful kind of surrounding. There's lots of statues, and it was a really great setting to have a book fair in. It was a massive amount of space, and you actually needed that. It took up basically the entire park. They shut down all the roads. It was really, really cool. So Gina and Susheela had already been there and they had done a quick wander around, and they said when I got there, they were like, we want to go back down to where we were because there's a few books that we want to buy that we've seen, and also there's a booth that you're gonna love. Gina and Susheela were kind of behind me like, is she gonna get anything? Is she gonna get anything? And sure enough, the first purchase I made was by Willow Dawson. So this book is called No Girls Allowed, and it is true stories. It's actually written by a woman named Susan Hughes, but Willow Dawson illustrated the book. This is the crazy cool bookmark that I got. This was actually a print that I was like, oh man, I would love to have this in my home, but you know, it's a little much. So now I have it as a business card / bookmark. I've obviously heard of Mulan, but there are several other women in here: Ellen Craft, Sarah Rosetta Wakeman, Esther Brando, Alfhild. And these are all people, these are all women that at some point throughout history dressed up as men, either for love, freedom, and or adventure. And the fact that she was right there, it was really cool that I got to talk to her. She complimented my nail polish. We did a lot of walking and a lot of wandering and meandering, and it was just so cool to be surrounded by all of these books and publishing houses that I had never heard of. And it was really cool to, it's kind of like being in a big crowd and seeing someone that you didn't intend on meeting up with. And when I did recognize a book, or if I saw a book that someone I knew had reviewed, I just thought that was like the coolest thing. We went over to Insomniac Press, and despite it only being halfway through the actual Word on the Street festival, they were already slashing prices and it was already discounted to begin with. I've never heard of Katrina Best, but this is a book of her short stories. She's originally from the UK and now she lives in Montreal. Likewise, I had never heard of Eric Cole, but when I picked up this book, I mean, the cover itself is pretty haunting. He is a zoologist, and he is actually now senior keeper of the elephants. I just thought it would be so cool to see what kind of poetry a man, an Irishman, who takes care of animals for a living would have. Again, I've never heard of Stephen Price, but Omens in the Year of the Ox just really drew me in. I absolutely love the cover, and it's poetry, and on the back Patrick Watson from the Globe and Mail said that it must have felt like this when T.S. Eliot came on the scene. And I'm a big fan of T.S. Eliot's work, so I thought it would be really cool to support a Canadian poet who has been compared to T.S. Eliot. So those are all the books that I paid for, but I actually got to pick up a free book. And it's not mine to keep, and it's not a library book. I've been wanting to read Michael Ondaatje for a long time, and The Cat's Table is not technically the one that I wanted to read, but this one is part of the book crossing movement. So the book is free, it's been allegedly all over the world, and I'm going to be signing in and letting the previous owner know where this book is. All in all, it was a really fun day. It was just so cool to be walking around with people who are, it's not just that we're like-minded individuals, but we're people that care about books and care about reading, but we also want to share that kind of thirst for literature. I'm really pleased with the books that I got, and I'm really pleased that I got books that I hadn't heard of before. I was tempted to get books that I had heard of or been advised to look into, but I thought it was cool that I was able to come to this place where there was a publishing house from London, Ontario, and get a book of poems. Something about it just felt very natural and organic, and it was a very tangible kind of experience. You got to pick up books. It was just cool to be very personable. There was actually a magazine that I saw and I thought it looked really amazing, and the people who created it were right there, and they were so bored with the experience. I mean, it really affects you when you meet the author of something and they're just disinterested in the entire process. On the other hand, when I was at the House of Anansi publishing booth, I mentioned to them that I run a Canlit book club, Hello Hemlock, and I mentioned that just totally by accident, the two books that I had picked were both published by House of Anansi, and the girl there was pleased to hear that. And there was this series, and I was saying, oh, I've never heard of this series, but it looks interesting. Which one's the first one? And she said these weren't the first ones, it was like the third and the fourth. And there was this blank space where the first one had been. And she said, but you know, if you go onto our website, you can get the same sale that we have here. And I just thought that was so cool that she was willing to help me out and not just say like, oh, but we have it on our website, end of story. Once I get to any of these books, I will definitely make reviews and let you know what they're like, because these are all technically Canadian authors and illustrators, and I think it would be really cool to promote people that, you know, they're around obviously, but they're not necessarily promoted on YouTube yet. So alright, thanks so much for watching, and I will talk to you later. Bye!